In this video, I'm going to talk about porn, or as I like to call it, the pseudo option, which is ridiculously nonsensical, P.O.R.N. And I have a feeling that's going to tie into a term that I coined that I call the cycle of infinite ruin, which all has to do with the relationship between pleasure and pain. So if it interests you, if you're struggling in life and you don't know where to turn, I definitely don't have any answers for you. I know that's antithetical to what most videos say. Most videos say, listen to me, I've got an answer and I've got a solution for you. I don't have that, but I can truly, sincerely ponder with you on the level of, I don't know. Because in my opinion, that's true freedom to find out. So if any of that interests you, let's get into it. So I call porn the pseudo option, which is ridiculously nonsensical. Because those words make the word porn an acronym. I grew up like most people with access to porn at a young age, and I watched it in secret consistently, constantly. It became a daily thing, and it's interesting to reflect on it, and I'll probably make more than one video about this subject because it's so rich with things that people might not notice about it. But it's interesting to notice that most people are doing this alone in their rooms, alone, without anyone around, and they're keeping it a secret. They feel shame about it. Today, most people have been trying to flip that and say that you shouldn't feel shame about it. Be open about it. You watch it, you don't watch it, it's fine. Everything's okay. And for a while, I would say I adhered to that perspective. But I think that's a dangerous perspective because I think the shame is a distortion of what's actually going on. I think what's actually going on is when one feels shame about this thing, somehow or another, it's tethered to how it's actually a form of a coping mechanism. I'm no scientist, I'm no guru, I'm no special person, I'm just a guy trying to convey a perspective that seems uncommon. But when you look at someone engaging in porn, you have to ask yourself, why are they engaging in that medium? And it's the same for other things. It's the same for actually satisfying sexual urges with a partner. It's the same for overindulging in food. It's the same for hours and hours playing video games. It's the same for just anything that you can think of. Why are they engaging in that medium? And for porn, and some people have already noticed this in themselves, yet maybe still feel trapped by it. It is literally what I've coined it to be. It is a pseudo option. One believes it to be an option intermediate because they don't have a partner, because they can't find a partner, because dating today is difficult and people don't meet each other as much and all these things. And so why not use porn, right? But I think it's actually doing significantly more damage than good. In fact, I think the use of it is the reason why we don't meet anymore, why we don't talk anymore, why we don't feel comfortable engaging anymore, because everything has been hypersexualized, and so we can't actually engage with the world and fall into the path, so to speak, of another person who we might then want to hold hands with and live life with. We can't do that because everything's about the acquisition and satisfaction and fulfillment of sex, and that gets in the way significantly, tremendously, dangerously. But we don't see it that way. We see there's some shame and we say, don't feel ashamed, indulge. But the interesting thing is, see, everything is related. The world, everything is related. Why do I say that? So what relationship has the use of the pseudo option to the rest of my life, to the rest of the world? What is my relationship to the world? And these are questions one has to ask oneself because they are necessary in understanding whether or not porn, the pseudo option, which is ridiculously nonsensical, I really intentionally want to keep saying that over and over, whether or not that has any value, truly, or if it's just a thing coined as valuable, given to me, but upon reflection is actually complete and utter devastating garbage. It took me a while to be able to sever myself from pornography, and the biggest things that helped were changing the name instead of continuing to call it the name, because words, if you really think about it, I'm not getting like weird about it, just like take it from a very simplistic perspective. Words are spells. The words we use are basic. They are creating the reality that we see. So the word porn had a specific conditioned connotation to my life, to my culture. To continue to call it that and try to sever myself from it was difficult, I found. So at some point I realized I have to change the name of this thing so that if I engage in it, if I see it, if someone puts it in my face, if it comes up on a screen, I know what I'm looking at. There's absolutely no confusion. So I sat and I thought about it and I said, what could those letters mean? Because the word's not going anywhere. So what could I take those letters and create a more clear, finer perspective of? And I realized it's the acronym I made. Pseudo means fake. Option, which is ridiculously, because it's just so viscerally, ridiculously nonsensical. Pseudo option, which is ridiculously nonsensical. That's what porn is. Some people will disagree. Some people will say it's helped me keep from doing absurd things to people that I would have otherwise done. I think it's the opposite. I think the more you do it and you're alone in your room to videos of people who you will never meet, only furthers and excites the interest in doing it. It doesn't keep you from doing it. It allows you to do it in a frustrated way so that maybe one day you lash out at a partner or at a stranger and you sexualize the world. It's a very dangerous platform, in my opinion. And deeper than that, it's not just the platform, but it's also one's relationship in itself to sex. One has to really question that, and I'll probably make another video and post that, because I want to stick to porn, and I want to also relate it to the cycle of infinite ruin. But that is a good question to ask yourself and ponder until I make that video. Not that my video is relevant or necessary. You can go into that in your own life. It doesn't matter what these videos say. It doesn't matter what anyone says. Experiment with your own life. How does this relate to the cycle of infinite ruin? A thing you have never heard of because I made it up myself, which is a consequence of truly examining your life and experimenting with the way you see reality. Because the way we all see reality isn't necessarily the same. But I found that there are fundamental things that are the same. And so what is the cycle of infinite ruin? The cycle of infinite ruin is this. You reach for the fast food. Why? Tastes good, convenient. Maybe your life doesn't feel so great. Not only does life not feel so great, but you find yourself in a deep state of sorrow and confusion and misery on a daily basis. And to cope with that, you develop the habit of seeking what's easy and convenient, because at least there you can numb out and you don't have to think about how mundane and painful your life is. So you eat the food that you've been given. You eat the fast food. You eat the snacks. No matter how saturated in chemicals, no matter how ultra processed, you engage in it. And on some level, maybe you know this isn't the best for me, but it tastes good and it makes me feel finally like something good is happening in life. So what is that relationship to the cycle of infinite ruin? To reach for that food once, that pleasure, is a spontaneous, random, joyful thing. But when time gets introduced, meaning when you reach for it again, the next day, and the next day, and the next day, fast food, coffee, the pseudo option, when time is introduced to that, it becomes a repeated thing. And what does that mean? That pleasurable act, which was once spontaneous and joyful and did something to your system, is now a requirement for your system to maintain itself, to feel decent about life. So what does that mean? That pleasure, through time, becomes pain. How is it so clear that it becomes pain? Because when you're tethered to this thing, the coffee, the fast food, the porn, you're not free anymore. You're actually not free. You're a slave to that thing. Without it, you become drained again. You become frustrated. That frustration rules your life. And you think to yourself, so what does that mean? It's a cycle, you see? You're tethered, you're slave to it now, and without it, you're frustrated, which means what? It's a cycle of seeking that pleasure again, which leads to more frustration when you don't have it, which leads to that seeking of that pleasure again. It's a cycle of infinite ruin that not only ruins you and your life, but your children and your children's children. It's a generational thing that is not only taught explicitly or subtly, intentionally or not. It's not only taught, but it's also conditioned in the body, in the habits. It's fascinating and devastating to observe the fact that when we reach for those things, it's not a shortcoming on the individual's part. We have created this world, right? Everyone has given fuel to the way we live. And so a degree of responsibility has to be taken, and you have to notice that this body, through generations, has been conditioned to seek because it is in pain. It has been conditioned to seek pleasure, excessive pleasure, because it is in pain. We've all inherited the trauma of our humanity without knowing it. We live that, and it's reflected in the way we live, in the fast food, in the media. It's reflected in everything. There's sorrow here, which is why we're addicted to the things that we're addicted to. And to see that is to see so much, is to see how everything is a reflection, how I am not separate from you, you are not separate from me, and that we ought not feel shame about the way we live, but we do have to take responsibility and notice that we are coping. We're all coping. I used to think certain people just didn't have the sensitivity or the capacity. And so I didn't think that I thought myself any better than them. But maybe on some level I did. I don't anymore. And it's very clear because of the fact that I noticed that it's a coping mechanism. The watching TV all the time, it's not about what you watch, right? If I talk about shows, it's not about what you're watching, but it's about the feeling that the watching gives you. And it's essentially the same for porn. That feeling is sought after, that numbness. I'm trying not to go all over the map, but it's just, these videos, I can talk about one thing, and a number of other things will reveal themselves to be related. So sometimes I have to go what seems like in a different direction, but it's all related. I'm sure it is. As far as I can tell with the logic that has unfolded throughout my personal journey on this earth. So the cycle of infinite ruin, which is a joyful, spontaneous thing that when time is introduced becomes pleasure, which then becomes pain. And there's no more joy, no more spontaneity, just pleasure and pain. And that's the way we live, infinitely. And that's the way we teach. And that's the way we grow human beings. And that's why we're so mentally ill. And that's why we're so physiologically depleted. And you don't need a degree to see that. You don't need a mentor to see that. You don't need a guru to see that. You need a mirror. And I don't just mean glass on a wall. The world is a mirror because everything's related. I know someone out there is truly listening to this. And that's all that matters. And one might ask, well, how do I get out of the cycle of infinite ruin? The cycle of infinite ruin is your life. Within that cycle is seeking of escape. Seeking of escape from pain. But the pain is the pleasure. What must one do? It would seem one must observe the so-called pleasures in one's life to such a degree that they are free to find out whether or not it is so beneficial to partake in it or not. You have to be so unhinged, so unbinded, so unshackled that you can take the thing that you supposedly love and question it, scrutinize it, break it into a million pieces and see what's there. Maybe it's just pain. And maybe the thing you really want is not more acquisitions and satisfactions, but emptiness, stillness. I like to say, prevail in stillness, relieve frustration, but to indulge frustration is to permit ruin. There is no how. There's a fundamental thing that one must come to grips with in their own life. There is no how. If I give you a how-to, I'm lying to you. Because the starting point of my life, up to this point where I'm sitting in this chair now talking to you, is absolutely ineffable. How I'm sitting in this chair making a video, I couldn't convey that, not with any accuracy. Because there's also forces like time and generational genetics that have influenced who I am, what I am, experiences. There's too many. It's ineffable. There's no how. How is, in many ways, except for technologically and in terms of knowledge, is a fallacy. So you say how. I really can't tell you how, but I can say to ponder what you think is giving you so much pleasure and question it ruthlessly is to find out whether or not it is that great thing or if it's the thing that leaves you in the devastated state which you may be in presently. In a nutshell, that is the cycle of infinite ruin, and I hope I've conveyed it with some clarity. But think on these things: the cycle of infinite ruin, the pseudo option, which is ridiculously nonsensical, and take your life seriously, because no one else will.